Most people know who the Oracle of Omaha is, Warren Buffett. Usually when he speaks, given his experience and his success, people will listen. Well, he said something that was quite shocking. It was a warning, a very stark warning about the dollar. Let's talk about it as we explore. Warren Buffett. When you hear that name, it usually invokes positive emotions for most people. However, we've got to understand that this man's been around a long time, and even though he may have some opinions that are not shared by all, most people respect his wisdom, given his age and mental acuity, especially for somebody of his advanced age, not being 94 years old. Well, Outlook Business has a piece here about what Warren Buffett has said about the dollar at Berkshire Hathaway's 60th annual shareholders meeting. The big news that came out from that was that he was going to be stepping down. But in reality, there was even bigger news, I think, that came out of that meeting. It was his final appearance as chief executive of the investment giant. Speaking to shareholders in Omaha, the prolific investor voiced concerns over U.S. fiscal trajectory and growing protectionist sentiment. And we'll get into that in a moment, but first I want to remind you of channel sponsor Summit Metals. They've got a growing selection of gold and silver products, so check them out at summitmetals.com for some of the best prices in the business. So what's happening? What did he say here? He's suggesting that the dollar could face sustained pressure under certain conditions, and that should be relatively obvious. In fact, it's facing sustained pressure under almost every condition. Why? Because our government continues to spend more than it takes in. That causes debt, and it causes the Fed to have to print money to cover those bills, therefore diluting the value of the dollar. I'll get into that in a moment. He says, obviously, we wouldn't want to be owning anything that we thought was in a currency that was really going to hell. So in other words, it sounds like that he's not betting on the dollar for the long term. That there could be things that happen to the U.S. that make us want to own a lot of other currencies. Indeed, in other words, we're at the top right now. Over 58% of all international transactions and holdings are in U.S. dollars. It is the premier dominant currency, and that's not going to change anytime soon. However, there are shifts, dramatic shifts in de-dollarization, and some have flirted with the idea of having a gold standard. In fact, we'll get into that in a minute too, because gold and silver are the key. In fact, these coins that you see here are based off of the dollar. This says $50 on it. And even though there's obviously more than $50 worth of gold in this 1 ounce gold coin, no question about that, it's well over $3,300, at least as of the recording of this video. So, but who knows? The thing is that they denominate this as to be backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. But indeed, it is the gold itself that maintains its value, which transcends price in this case. These are coins that were once spent as money in the United States. This is a $50, and is the foundation from Adolf Wyman of the design of our modern silver dollar, which is a bullion coin, which is right here. The modern gold or silver dollar here, remarkable coin, worth much more than $1. There's no question about that. Then you have the St. Gaudens $20 gold coin here, that once circulated, although not nearly as much as silver coins, smaller gold coins of the time. But nonetheless, this is an example of what we used to have in the country. In a sense, a bimetallic standard with circulating silver coins and other money backed by gold. But notwithstanding, that was around right after he was born. For the most part, that was kind of the case after Buffett was born in 1930. That was the case here. The remarks came amid a broader discussion on trade, currency exposure, and geopolitical risk. Buffett pointed to Berkshire's recent investments in Japan as a rare example of the firm shifting its funding towards a foreign currency, the Japanese yen. He attributed the move to the unusual favorable borrowing conditions and confidence in the long-term outlook of the 5 Japanese trading houses in which Berkshire has invested. And it's the first time we've done that, he said. So, he's not really big on the dollar right now, it sounds like. And so when you look at what's going on with these currencies around the world and our currencies and how much we're doing this deficit spending, it does make you question. The dollar really essentially is declining, and he's recognizing it in his age. I think with age comes wisdom, as long as you have your mental faculties about you, and some of the filters get removed. Some of these filters get removed because why not speak the truth? So, it's crazy. And so that's what he's doing here, especially on his last meeting there. And so it's fascinating to see what he's saying there, that essentially he would not be betting on the dollar at this point in time, and that it could go to hell. Although it's a slow ride to hell, that's for sure. And he's talking about here further with some of the comments about what's going on. The United States, we're an incredibly important country, starting from nothing 250 years ago. And there's not been anything like it. And so that's something for sure to say. But we could get ourselves in trouble with the currency and the way we're really abusing our currency. Because back when the Federal Reserve Act was enacted on December the 23rd, 1913, a dollar was worth about this. Now, I'm rounding up for sure. It's really about $98, $97 and $98. But hey, we'll round up to 100. That's how much value has been lost with our dollar over the course of that time. But even more impressive than that statistic, and I think in a sense, Warren Buffett knows this. And this was our dollar right there, measured in gold. The Mint Act of 1972 that set the standards for what a dollar was in gold, and this was our dollar in silver. Yes, indeed. That's what it looked like in both metals, gold and silver. That was our dollar. And so when you look at what defines a dollar, this, under the Act of 1792, which in a sense really is still not been repealed, right? Maybe it's shifted. We use these Federal Reserve notes now, which in a sense is extra constitutional. And so therefore, some people can make the argument that it's unconstitutional, but nonetheless, Congress has the power to levy laws, and that can sometimes, and has directly contradicted the Constitution, but the Constitution still stands, Article 1, Section 10, of which these are a part. So when Warren Buffett makes these mentions, he doesn't go take the next logical step, unfortunately. And there is a video of him saying this, and he goes into some detail where it comes very close but doesn't make the next move. The reason why I'm not playing that video is it's a little hard to understand. If you think my voice is gravelly, wait till you hear his now at the age of 94. Notwithstanding, he basically says that the people are looking for alternatives. These are the alternatives. And it's reality, this, the dollar, is the alternative. This is the original. The OG of what the dollar is right here. You're looking at it. And when you hold these in your hand, you are, in a sense, holding true constitutional money, constitutional gold, constitutional silver that have extended and preserved their value over the long course of time in that 100-plus years. Well over 115 years now, or somewhere thereabouts. And so it's pretty amazing to think about. And when you have somebody like Warren Buffett, who's been around a long time, who has seen the dollar shift and change from a gold standard, in part to a Bretton Woods system, to the closing of the gold window in 1971, he's seen it all. And, his logical mind is working here. In fact, at one time, Warren Buffett owned a whole lot of silver and some silver mines before he liquidated that back in the late 90s. Now, here we are, we find ourselves in a situation where maybe, just maybe, Warren Buffett will shift and change his views on gold and silver. I don't think he had very nice things to say about gold at the time, so we sort of saw it as just sitting there like a pet rock. But nonetheless, I think his comments really bring us that much closer to understanding that wisdom comes with age. Sometimes the truth will just blurt out, and that's exactly what happened with Warren Buffett in this case. So there you have it. As we shift, we're navigating the winds of geopolitics with wars happening in countries and trade wars, as well as hot wars, geopolitical situations, domestic policy blunders and issues that come up. Gold and silver have been the stalwart of the bulwark of wealth preservation, hedges against all of that insanity. And they will continue to do so no matter what the policies are, no matter what nation states do. We will hold our gold and silver to be self-evident because they themselves indeed are protectors of our wealth. So let me know what your thoughts are about this news down in the comments section below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.